shut up. I love this color. I'm obsessed with it. It is just beautiful. I kind of get it. I kind of get the rush. Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Knits by Mandy. My name is Amanda, and this is the 22nd episode of the Knits by Mandy podcast. It is the 22nd, but there won't be any Taylor Swift-esque Easter eggs in this video, but I do have a lot of exciting life updates and knitting updates to share with you all. I've been working slowly but surely on my knit flip series. I have a finished object to share with you, and without further ado, let's get into it. But first, a word from the sponsor of this video, Book of the Month. I have my glasses on to talk about this video's sponsor, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a monthly subscription service that helps readers discover new books they love and promote the works of emerging authors. Some things that I love about Book of the Month is that each month a team of editors curates a list for subscribers to select from. For me, it helps cut through the noise, but it also helps me discover new books or genres that I may have not been exposed to otherwise. When picking my books, I like to choose one that's a little bit more in my reading comfort zone. I use my second option to choose a book that I might not have otherwise picked. It's also fun to get these books delivered to you in a bright blue box and at a value that really can't be beat for new release hardcover fiction. Here are my May picks for Book of the Month. Books also come with a cheeky little bookmark, which I just appreciate. The first book that I selected is The Paradise Problem by Christina Loren. This book is about a fake marriage that turns all too real when the male character has to secure his family's generational grocery store wealth by proving that he's been married for 5 years. A fake to real relationship trope is one of my favorites, kind of brings me back to my fan fiction days, and I always love reading it in a more grown-up novel format. And this seems like a really fun book to start off the summer. Real Americans by Rachel Hong was my second choice, and this book tells the story of a family that descends from Chinese immigrants and touches on the themes of what it means to be American, family, race, and inheritance. I love a familial drama, and a fun fact about me is that my grandparents immigrated from India to the United States, so I always love reading stories about the American immigrant experience. And although everyone's stories are different, it does make me feel connected to my family. So I'm really excited to dive into this one. If you're interested in these titles or any of the others for May, Book of the Month is offering $5 off your first purchase with the code PETALS, and you can use the link in my description. Thank you again to Book of the Month for this sponsorship, and let's get back to the video. It has been over a month since I filmed a podcast, which is kind of rare, and I feel like I've lived 100 lives since I've sat down and talked to you last. I have been vlogging a little, so you can catch up with me that way if you'd like in my most recent knit flip vlog, but here's kind of the skinny of what's been going on in my life in the past month and a half. You might know I'm doing a graduate certificate program for instructional design, which has taken up a lot of my weekend time and spare time doing assignments and readings and discussion posts and all that fun stuff. It has been really rewarding so far, and I feel like I've been able to apply it to my job. It's really reassuring and good to know, and I'm learning a lot. Oh, my cat just came out, so the door opened a little more. Back in March, I went home to celebrate my birthday with my family and the arrival of my new baby cousin, which is so exciting. He's the first baby in my family. I'm very close with my cousins. I grew up with basically all my extended family in Pittsburgh, and I try to make it back as often as I can, and it always just like fills my cup to be home. I even knit a quick beanie for my little cousin while I was there. I don't have a picture of it, but I knit the classic cuffed hat by Pearl Soho. Super quick, easy knit in some leftover superwash from the sweet shop blanket I made anticipating his arrival for my cousin in Christmas. Home is the best. I think one day I will end up back in Pittsburgh, but for now it's really nice to spend time visiting there and still enjoy living in DC. And it is spring now here in DC, which is my absolute favorite season. The weather is warm before it gets sweltering hot and humid. There's no bugs out. Trees are just this like beautiful light green color. The city comes back to life. The cherry blossoms are out. It's just my favorite season here, and so I'm just feeling really good today while filming this. The other big life update I have is that I got engaged to my boyfriend. He's now my fiance, which is crazy to say. We got engaged last week. A surprise that I saw coming, but it was good. Starting to have a sinus infection last weekend, and so I only really left the house that day because I knew the proposal was coming. We had been kind of off and on sick for the past few weeks here, and I'm Also just very energized and excited to not be sick anymore. I'm coming off my antibiotic. I'm like feeling really good and just really excited. And if you see me doing this a lot, like, I'm so sorry in advance, but it's just very exciting. Wedding planning is going to be coming up soon. So it's been an amazing spring, to say the least, and I'm excited to share what I've been working with you all. And although my knitting pace is slower than usual, I'm feeling a bit re-energized into it and excited to show you what I've been making. One part of the process that I do really love is being able to share it online and honestly get feedback, but also see what other people are making. I noticed that when I wasn't sharing, or the lack of sharing in the making, like, coincide for me. Part of it is just like getting that validation from people, but it's also just nice to feel connected to something. So it's twofold. For sure. Just really excited to be talking to you all again and to show you what I've been working on. So the first finished object that I have, in my last episode, I was lamenting about how difficult it was for me to knit a hat that I really liked, and I finally feel like I nailed it with the Weekend Hat by Petite Knit. This is a 1x1 rib hat, and it's super simple to make, of those classic Petite Knit details that you get with her patterns that make the finishing just look extra nice and stylized. This in Sandesgarn Pure Gynt. I'll put the color in the description, but it's like the bright yellow green color that they have. This is what it looks like on. I feel like it's a little hard to show on camera, but I finally kind of got what I wanted with having a little bit of space above the hat at the crown, because I was starting to kind of feel like a pinhead in a lot of the hats that I was making, especially the Oslo hat. It sat down on my head in a weird way that I didn't like, and that was definitely because I didn't have a thick enough and structured enough fabric for the hat. I decided to pivot, and I'm really happy with this color. It's just like bright and cheery and able to breathe life into the winter, the gray days when you need a hat, the windy days. It just, I don't know, it lightens me up. It makes me feel kind of fun and fresh. When I was home, I was on a walk with my mom, and one of her neighbors complimented it, and I was like, thank you, I made it. Just like, you don't like really get those like friendly interactions where you like say hi to everyone you see in a walk, obviously, when you live in a city, not in DC. So that really just like put a pep in my step. And yeah, I think Austin really likes this hat too, which is, I don't knit for my boyfriend or my fiance, but it is kind of interesting to see which things that he's like, oh, I really like that. I really, really like that. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, you really like the neon green hat. I didn't expect that, but that's interesting. Do a few rounds of double knitting to create the cuff, and I definitely missed one and kind of messed it up because I read the pattern incorrectly. Can't tell a really big difference with the cuff and how it stays, so I think it all worked out. What I think happens with me is I'm like, oh, a hat pattern, this will be easy, and then I just like read half of it, and then I always miss something important, and it's always user error on my part. And it is frustrating when it keeps happening. And like, what's the definition of insanity? Trying something over and over. I think since I switched up the pattern a little, it worked out. And I'm very happy with this piece. I have gotten to where I was thinking maybe since I finished it in March that I wouldn't be able to wear it that much. But I definitely got a lot of wear out of it in Pittsburgh and here still. So that is the Weekend Hat by Petite Knit. I'm just noticing I don't have this end woven in yet, but it's my favorite thing about a hat. You can just tuck it in. And I don't think I have, no. I didn't tuck this end in either. So, I'm being real right now. Be real. I've been alluding to my knit flip series, and this is where I'm updating pieces of knitwear that I already own to make them more me and more lovable. And I completed the first project, which was over dyeing my Ingrid top, and I wanted to share that with you. The vlog is up of the whole process of the over dyeing if you're curious and you kind of want to see the play-by-play. So this is what the dye job ended up with. Before, it was a really, really dusty light blue. Someone even, I think, commented that it was looking gray, and it was just doing nothing for my complexion, but it also wasn't encouraging me to wear it either. And I'd already done some tinkering with this to make sure that it fit me better after I finished the project. So I wanted to give it like one last try to make sure in check that I really like this top, and I wanted to make it work. I used RIT dyes, and I used a combination of two colors. I believe it was evening blue and teal, and it ended up with this really pretty teal color. Honestly surprised how teal came out. How many times can I say teal? I'm honestly surprised at how well it came out. And it was super simple. I would definitely recommend it if you maybe have kind of like a lower stakes project that you don't really want to frog, but trying something out. I know that it's also kind of a popular thing to do with thrifting clothes. People will like dye their clothes in batches, like overdye them brown or other colors. Definitely recommend it. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Yeah, and it was a super simple DIY that I think any knitter is capable of. Here's a closer look at the color. It has this strand of viscose through it that adds a little bit of dimension, which is just beautiful. And by the way, this was knit in sandesgarn line, which is a linen cotton blend. So I just used their regular dye for this and then followed the instructions for I think cotton or linen, which are similar because they're plant-based fibers. On the vlog, if you want to check out the whole process, overall, really, really happy with it. And that is the Ingrid top. And I'm kind of excited. I have like a new object ready for when it gets warmer, especially now. I feel like I'm behind the weather where I haven't started any warm weather knits yet, but I'm moving at my own pace, okay? I'm moving at my own pace. Let's talk about the next object that's a part of the Knit Flip series. This was another big project with like pre-work, which was frogging my Whitmore cardigan. I had knit this lace yoke cardigan last year and I got absolutely no wear out of it. I decided I wanted to save the yarn. I didn't really know anyone that wanted the cardigan or anyone in my life whose style that is, and so I just decided I want the yarn. I ripped up this beautiful lace yoke sweater and I've started a stockinette raglan pullover, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a little funny, but this is what I wanted to do. Cast on the Lento sweater. The designer's name is fully escaping my brain, but it was part of a Lane magazine release, and I'll put it in the description. The Lento sweater really swept the nation in popularity, swept the world really, when it came out last spring. One of the reasons it's so popular is that you can use a smaller amount of yarn to knit a full sweater, and it uses mohair and a fingering weight held double. Usually a mohair and a fingering is knit on a DK gauge at around a 4mm needle, but the Lento is knit on a 6mm needle, which gives it this really light and airy fabric that I feel like has a lot of drape and movement. That's one of the reasons I think it's so popular, and it's also a very quick knit. I am knitting it slowly, but I could imagine if I had knit this kind of uninterrupted, I would have been done by now if I was maybe knitting at like last year's pace. I decided it's quite cropped right now, which is kind of funny because I'm making another sweater longer, so hopefully this isn't me remaking the same mistake, but I want to balance out the heaviness of the fabric, and I also find that when things are cropped, it makes them easier for me to layer them, maybe with like high-waisted skirts or with a dress or pants. It just makes it more versatile in my closet, and I do think this is going to get some pretty good growth through blocking. I finished the body, as you can see, and it is just a raglan sweater. It's top down. You start with the collar. I ended up going with the double folded 1x1 collar, and the raglan stitches are quite nice, and I went for a little bit of a deeper raglan, just adding I think maybe 1 or 2 more increase rounds. I just wanted a little bit more positive ease, and now all I have to do is the sleeves, which I think will hopefully fly by, and I'm planning on making them a little bit more straight with just like a little bit of a taper. I've found that when sleeves are a little bit like straighter and less tapered, one, I feel like it gives a more modern look in silhouette, and I like it a lot more. So like my very v-neck raglan that I have has these kind of straight sleeves, which I just like love the style of. My Harlow v-neck sweater has straighter sleeves. I think there's a little bit, like there's some T-creases, but you're not going down like really dramatically, which I honestly haven't looked at the pattern of the Lento. I think it is more of a tapered sleeve, and I'm going to just kind of like probably wing it based on what the pattern says for the sleeves for the lento. Looking forward to having this done, having the sweater frogged. Again, you can check out the whole frogging process in the vlog if you'd like. It was definitely tricky. I definitely never want to frog mohair and wool again. It wasn't fun. I did it on and off over the course of the day, and then I ended up just washing the yarn. I figured that might be easier than steaming after seeing some other folks' experiences with frogging, and it was pretty simple just to wash the yarn as if you were blocking it and pressing out the water and leaving it out to dry. I rewound everything, and overall it went pretty well. The one thing that I noted in my blog, and I'll note here now as well, with the gauge of yarn, it's really recommended if you're knitting with two yarns together, like you shouldn't pre-roll them together or pre-cake them together. If you're knitting with two yarns, and I think ideally you would separate the yarns as you go, I did not want to do that. And so far it hasn't been a huge problem. I found, at least, is that often the wool, or like the merino, gets like longer and kind of more like bunched up than the mohair because you're knitting with it more quickly, and so the lengths just get uneven. Sometimes you can just remedy that if it gets really bad by cutting, or I kind of just like run my finger through the yarn and kind of push that excess down until I come to it again. And it hasn't been the worst problem to have. It hasn't been horrible. So that is the lento sweater. I'm really happy with it so far. Maybe I'll just give it a quick try on. I haven't actually tried it on. I just bound it off. There is short row shaping as well, which I always really like. This is what we're working with now. I think I was a little hesitant at first, which is kind of silly because it's just like a raglan sweater, but I really don't have just a plain pullover sweater like this, and I think that the fact that it is a mohair and it's pink will make it a really fun piece in my wardrobe. I'm already picturing this with maybe like a colorful beaded necklace and just like a light pair of jeans in the winter. I'm already loving the feeling of this fabric versus how it felt when it was knit on 4mm needles. It's definitely very fuzzy and still warm, but there's just like a lightness to it I think is awesome, because that's like, mohair is so fluffy and light. It makes sense to let it kind of do its thing and fill up the stitches rather than be like really compacted and really, really warm. That was one of my main complaints too, and is my main complaint with mohair usually, is that when you're holding it with a wool, it's just like too warm for where I live, and I'm a sweaty girl. So hopefully this will help remedy that. I feel like I'm talking 1,000 words a minute and I'm not stopping anytime soon. So that is the lento sweater. I have one more whip. I started it back in March, and then I finally had the time to frog my sweater and start the lento, and so I put this on the back burner. And this is the Lanark sweater by Rebecca Clow, or the Gregoria. It's a half fisherman's rib, quarter zip pullover sweater. This is also in sandesgarn pure gynt in this beautiful lilac. I think it's called dark lilac. Shut up. I love this color. I'm obsessed with it. I got to the point where I'm supposed to be like folding over the collar and knitting this together with the provisional cast on. I don't have the same number of stitches on the top than the bottom. It gave me pause, and I think this might just sit for a while. I do want to finish my knit flipping, but this might be here to pick up when I want to. I haven't decided if I want to start over or just kind of like fudge it. I think normally if it was like a stockinette sweater, I would fudge it because it would be easier, but I'm a little worried of the ribbing not lining up, and then if I have to increase, it's gonna look weird. That's where I'm at, really at a stopping point. I haven't really picked this up since March. I knit this while I was in Pittsburgh, and then I kind of just put it down. But I'm really, really interested in the color to see how this turns out. That is my whip so far. Here's a peek at what it might look like. Pretty exciting stuff, if I do say so myself. Definitely half fisherman rib. Felt like it worked up really slowly. Now, this will be a longer project, but it'll be one of those ones I think that'll be just like to die for when it's done. That is the Lanark sweater. The last thing that I have, really looking forward to the release of the Stella quilt blanket pattern by Laura Penrose. I made the Sweet Shop blanket, and I'm pretty sure that it'll be like a similar construction, but I am always willing to pay the money, one, to support designers, but two, just to like have you spell it out for me. I don't want to do any guesswork. I'm anxiously awaiting this blanket pattern, and in the meantime, I have started to kind of stockpile and purchase mini sets here and there. I normally am not a huge hand-dyed yarn person. I've never bought mini skeins in my life before, but something kind of came over me. And at first I was saving these for a sweet shop blanket, but then I've seen like the Stella quilt and I'm like, I chemically need it. I need it biblically. I need it really badly. Did a quick math based on what I've read for the quilt cushion pattern, and I think I'll end up needing around, if it was just mini skeins, 64 for a queen size blanket. Sassy just opened my door a little bit more again, which is a lot. Like it's a lot. I bought the fall Sorella tonals last fall, and I just bought the spring tonals. I'm interested to see what the summer tonals look like. They might be like the final piece, because I also bought, this is not sponsored by Sorella, they just like really put out like an extraordinary volume, I think. And I think I have like recency and exposure bias to them, but I also really, really love the colors they put out. Also bought their book mini set, as well as a mini set from Sunday Fiber Co. of her tonal collections. So those haven't come yet. And I think once I get those, I really want to like put things together and also go into my scrap pile as well, see where I'm at. And then I think this will obviously be a very long project, but a fun project for the summer and just like an heirloom project. Like I want it to like be a queen size blanket, which is a little unhinged for me. It feels unhinged, but in a really good way. So I did the thing where I did not want to keep everything in its casing. I wanted to like get it out and touch it and put it on my wall. And of course I got it all mixed up with the fall tonals. So this is a rough idea of what the spring tonals look like, and I'm not going to go through every single color. I'm kind of going to gather it all together in my hands and show you what it looks like. Shut up, they're so pretty. I actually have a picture. I put the fall tonals next to the spring tonal so you can see which ones are which. And I'm thinking in my head that it will be, each square will be like more or less monochromatic, so like blues in one, yellows in one, oranges in one, reds. Maybe there's like a beigey one in the center, or like a browny one in the center, or you know, you just do like a mix. I don't know. I always like loved putting things in rainbow order when I was a little kid. So here's a look at the approximate Sorella Spring Tonals collection. It is just beautiful. I'm obsessed. I love her. I really love this lilac color that's on this finger. And I'm just looking forward to starting this behemoth of a project once things come out. I still need to buy the white yarn to the main color to go with all the contrasting colors. That's a problem for future Amanda. That being said, I have already invested a lot of money into this blanket. You know, knitting a blanket is not cheap, and I think I'm gonna put myself, I'm not even gonna call it a yarn ban because I might be buying more yarn for this blanket, but I'm going to try as much as I can. I'm gonna finish these projects that I already have, and I have a lot of summer yarns that I didn't get to last year, which I think I could make a lot of things with this spring, maybe even into the summer. So I touched a little bit on that in my vlog, but I have the yarn for a vacation vest with a creative tweed that I want to hold with it. I have some really pretty like color changing yarn from Barocco, I think. I got it at Moon and Yarn Craft Room when I was back in Pittsburgh last summer. I have a metric fuck ton of Knitting for Olive pure silk, which maybe I'll hold together for a top or something. So I have a lot to work with, and that will make me feel a little bit better while I continuously buy up minis. That being said, if you would like know that you have a favorite designer or favorite dyer coming out with tonal mini sets, just like let your girl know, like drop me a DM, because I might be rounding my collection out. And it would be cool to get some other dyers in there as well. Again, it's not something that I normally gravitate towards for like a lot of reasons. I think the limited drops always honestly like stress me out, and so I just avoid them. And then I also don't really like love variegated yarns that much, which a lot of hand dyed leans towards. It's a little new for me, but like, ooh, I kind of get it. I kind of get the rush. This stuff's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. So that's what I'll hopefully be working on this spring summer. I want to talk reality television, and let's talk Taylor Swift as well. I have some thoughts on the new album. In the last episode, I really did go on like a 15-minute rant about ACOTAR. I think it might have even been 20. But let's talk about all of the good Bravo shows that are out right now. I think we're really in a Real Housewives drought, but what is really thriving is what I'd like to think of 40-year-olds in Arrested Development genre of Bravo TV. So we have Vanderpump Rules, we have Summer House, and we have The Valley. Let's start with Summer House. It's a little bit of an outlier of those two. If you're not aware, it is a show about, it started as a bunch of 20-something, 30-something year olds working kind of these fast-paced jobs in Manhattan and New York, and then they would go to the Hamptons over the weekend into their summer house. Now, of course, it's like 8 years later. A lot of people have had incestuous relationships, and also like they don't have real jobs anymore, which there's always like an era of shows kind of start to suck when people's jobs are the shows, but it's just like that beast that reality television creates. I think it's really compelling. One, I mean, spoiler, Carly and Lindsay call off their engagement, which we all found out. You're seeing like the slow decline of an engagement, which is a little spooky, but also it's really compelling television. Often what happens in Reddit, on Twitter, whatever, when people talk about these shows is they get distilled into like team someone or team someone. Because I get caught into it, but like take a step back and really appreciate that like none of these people are really good, and that is the beauty of these shows. I think Lindsay is acting in a very Lindsay way, but I also don't think Carl's the best. I don't think Carl's a perfect person. I mean, no one's a perfect person. So it just makes for a very compelling watch. That in itself is fascinating. And then you have Amanda and Kyle, and like, I've never seen two people that dislike each other more than Amanda and Kyle. Like, she hates him. He resents her. I'm sad. I'm watching. I'm watching because it's interesting. It's just interesting. This season of Vanderpump Rules, however, is a little stunted to me. It's really, I feel like, mostly Ariana and Katie like being normal people, and Lala and Sheena kind of doing what they have to do for the show. And there's that tension there, meaning that like Ariana and Katie don't want to film with the Toms, and like Lala and Sheena will, because they know that they kind of have to keep their job. The sick thing about Vanderpump Rules, if you watched it all the way through, is that the men always get away with murder on that show. It's a little old now at this point, seeing them trying to give Tom Sandoval the hero edit, because that is someone who lacks zero remorse, zero understanding of what they did. They immediately wanted to be forgiven, and it's just like, you can't. Like, it makes it almost hard to watch, but like, yeah, again, you gotta keep watching. Mostly justice for Mr. Banks, Allie's cat, living with a dog formerly known as Graham, aka Hippie, which is, again, a very dark storyline. There's a lot of content there in the Vanderpump Rules sphere. I also just need to say, like, I hate what Lala is doing with her beef with Ariana. Like, I'm not into it. I'm not buying what Lala is selling. And I'm really interested to see what happens at the reunion. Also, Lala and Sheena, like, hate that they've been through the same thing. They've been through either divorces or breakups. Lala was cheated on, and Lala's going through this custody battle, and like, she didn't get famous from it. And I will go on record saying, Lala, like, I don't think people feel sympathy for you because you openly, like, admitted to dating this person for rides on a private jet. So, like, when this person maybe turns out, like, not to have the best intentions with you, no one's like, oh my God, him? That's crazy, Lala. No one ever saw that coming. And I'm not trying to blame her, but it's just like, it's not make her like a sympathetic character like Ariana did. And those are just the facts. I'm sorry. The counterpart to Vanderpump Rules, which is The Valley, which includes previous canceled cast members from Vanderpump Rules, Jax and Kristen Doty. Whoever thought we'd see Kristen Doty on our screen again. That woman like cannot be on television anymore. We get Kristen Doty off of televisions in America. It's really funny because Austin and he'll kind of drop in with reality television, and he watched some of Vanderpump Rules with me last season, and he's watching it with me now, but he's really into the Valley, and we've watched the early seasons of Vanderpump Rules together, and something about Kristen Doty like absolutely activates him in a very funny way. So like he's like, it's like a car crash for him. He has to watch it. This is another case where we know that a couple is going through a very public breakup. I think two of the couples are, and you're seeing that like fall apart on camera. Anyway you slice it, like I'm gonna watch that. I'm sorry. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm interested, watching. I think the dynamic between Jax and Brittany is kind of fascinating after the conception of that relationship, or the inception of that relationship on Vanderpump Rules. Seeing Jax like move this girl from Kentucky out to his studio apartment. He has her get plastic surgery. She defends him. He cheats on her. She defends him. She goes, I'm engaged. Me last weekend. I'm engaged. And I've been like really kind of honing my Brittany impression as well. But she just defends him at every turn. And he's such a vile human. But he's often like right too, which is so frustrating. Another couple is on there, Jesse and Michelle. They hate each other. Hate each other. Kind of crazy to me that some people like end up in these relationships. And there's a lot of good reality television. We're in the golden age of reality TV. If you're not watching, you should watch. That's the reality television chat. I'd originally filmed a TTPD review when I filmed this podcast episode, but now it's been a week and I feel like the album has had time to marinate, and I have different thoughts on it now. I definitely like it more than I did maybe 5 days ago, which is pretty wild. Taylor Swift says her songs truly have narcotics in them. My first impression of the album was that it was long, that it could be edited a little, and that a lot of the songs weren't as sonically interesting and complex as they could be as some of her previous work. Especially, I think, I don't know, like what a lot of people are saying is that maybe she and Jack Antonoff have gotten too comfortable producing together. I can't really say, like, I don't know, like how their creative process works. And at first I was like, I really wish she just would have released a tighter album. I feel like you could have still captured a lot of the emotional intensity that you needed and that she wanted to convey without 31 songs. I still think that, but I also like appreciate almost like the unhinged nature of releasing this anthology. One thing for me that I've just like noticed, and I'm like, interesting about Taylor Swift, and like interesting about how I guess I listen to her music, is it's really easy to get sucked into like paternity testing all of her songs and being like, oh, this is about Matt, this is about Joe, this is about Travis, like this is about Carly Kloss. For this album, I felt like that kind of took me out of it, and it's much more enjoyable, I think, when you think of Taylor Swift the artist rather than Taylor Swift the person. And maybe that's because like I don't really find Taylor Swift the person, a billionaire who is a superstar, to be like super relatable. I still think she captures a lot of like human conditions and experiences very well. But then when you like get them into like her life, you're like, oh God, like there's a dissonance there for me. I found just the more that I listen to it and just like enjoy it for what it is, I like it. All right, let me pull up the track list and tell you what some of my favorites are. I do like the Tortured Poets Department. I love So Long London. I love But Daddy, I Love Him. Florida, Guilty as Sin, Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, I Can Do It with a Broken Heart, The Black Dog. The back half of the album I really like. The Albatross, Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus, I really like that song. I would say maybe Peter and the Bolter. And I didn't say Clarabelle. I do like Clarabelle. Those I think are standing out to me right now, but you know, favorites always change. I found the Travis songs boring. The way that But Daddy, I Love Him and Guilty of Sin have just like nestled into my brain. It's very impressive. I don't know, maybe I'd give TTPD like a 7 in comparison to her other albums. I think there's parts where it does still feel muddled to me. Like looking through this track list, I'm like, I could like cut out like 3 songs like here and there and there. So yeah, that's my impression. I'm interested to see what she does at Eras Tour and what she'll do for it. Okay, those are my Taylor Swift thoughts, and back to Amanda. This is a beefy episode, but it feels really, really good to be filming and be back. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!